After years of economic turmoil, a financial bright spot on the horizon for Egypt's economy. We delve into Cairo's burgeoning startup scene. Coming up, Marketplace Middle East is in Cairo. We meet with the Minister of International Cooperation. Plus, Egyptian entrepreneurs embrace green business as the country prepares to host the world's largest climate event, COP27. Welcome to Marketplace Middle East. I'm Eleni Jarkas, and this month we are in Cairo. It's a bustling city with a population of over 20 million people in its metropolitan area. Now, Egyptian markets date back centuries, and they've seen numerous economic cycles of highs and lows. Tourists are an important revenue stream for markets, and now it's a sector that's been heavily impacted by the Russian war in Ukraine. Egypt relies on Ukraine and Russia for at least a third of the 10 million tourists visiting the country every year. Tourism as a percentage of GDP plummeted from $32 billion in 2019 to $14.4 billion in 2020, a drop precipitated by the pandemic. Egypt's economic woes forced the country to take painful measures to devalue its currency and reform its economy. In June this year, it turned to the World Bank for a $500 million loan. And now, analysts are forecasting a surge in private investments and exports. A large part of that is encouraging foreign direct investment. At the forefront of that strategy is Rania Mashat, Egypt's Minister of International Cooperation. I sat down with her to find out what Egypt's plan is going forward. I want to start with where Egypt stands right now economically. We have seen rise in inflation, we're worried about grain, we're concerned about the cost of fuel, but at the same time that you're experiencing the short-term pain, you have to maintain focus on the long term. How do you balance out this dilemma?
Since 2014, Egypt invested in silos for wheat storage. We did not have that before. Also invested in increasing agricultural land, and wheat was part of that. So when this crisis happened, there was storage capacity, and also there was 50% of our local consumption from local production. So this is when a country has a vision, it can weather different shocks. It can create that resilience.
All of these that you mentioned require immense funding, right? And during this time where you see economic pain and uncertainty, how do you ensure that there's always fiscal space to fund these types of mega projects? So you're inviting FDI, you're inviting companies come and invest. The energy projects seem to be quite exciting. Do you think Egypt is placed in a very different position to be able to attract this kind of money?
So a few important pointers. When we look at countries trying to move forward on their development agendas, of course, budget provides a key resource, but also private sector investments are important, and also international partnerships with multinational development banks and development partners. So there are different types of financing.
When it comes to entrepreneurship and innovation, Mashat says Egypt's future is looking bright. The information and technology sector is robust, clocking in higher growth than the country's GDP. Between 2020 and 2021, the sector grew 16% with $3 billion in investment. Between 2019 and 2020, the sector rose by 15.2%.
So we have a demographic which is quite impressive, 60% of the population below the age of 30. Innovation and creativity exist, access to digital space is there, and therefore what we've seen over the past few years, a very vibrant and developing startup scene.
While there are many challenges, there is overall optimism.
It's not without its challenges, and entrepreneurship is about challenges to begin with in any event. Emerging markets have distinct challenges about sufficient capital across the spectrum and educating new markets new to technology. But this is a new era of success, I think, in Egypt now, and also through the Middle East and emerging markets. The Egyptian companies are looking not just at Egypt, but the region and beyond it. And look, I think we have to remember that while there are infrastructure challenges in any emerging market and pretty much anywhere overall, in places like education and health and prop tech and technology elements of financial stuff, at the end of the day, that's where the opportunity lies. And I think Egyptian entrepreneurs are leaning into that quite seriously.
And leaning into that is the Egyptian government, who are remaining laser-focused on growth sectors during times of massive uncertainty.
The global environment is evolving and it's been very challenging for everyone. But what we've seen most recently is a reduction in fuel prices and food prices, which is creating some relief. Something else which is quite important is we're moving ahead on different structural reforms that will open up also investing opportunities for sectors. So Egypt, I think, over the years has shown a lot of resilience, and that is something that we feel, despite hiccups, there is a medium to long-term trajectory that we're very confident about.
Coming up, we take a look at one sector that's on an upward trajectory, how turning to tech could help Egypt's entrepreneurs brave the economic storm. That's coming up next on Marketplace Middle East. Welcome back to Marketplace Middle East from Cairo. Many young entrepreneurs here are discovering that investing in green business models are a path to profitability. In November, Egypt is set to host the biggest climate change conference in the world, COP27. And here in Cairo, sustainable entrepreneurship is all the buzz. One angel investor tells us why entrepreneurs are currently going green in the hope of big returns, not just financially, but also altruistically. They call him the Egyptian shark.
I don't know. I mean, people think I'm too strict and so on.
Because Khaled Ismail knows a thing or two about what makes a good startup. A judge on the Arab version of Shark Tank, today his VC fund is not only looking for a profitable return, but a green one.
We're very lucky that most of the startups we invested in have made good impact, because we look for impact as well. So sometimes financial gain is not the only thing. There is a trade-off and we accept that. Of course we want to make money at the end, but you know, if it's not 10x or 50x, but only 2x, and yet it had a good impact on the society and so on, that keeps us also still happy.
After successfully selling his Cairo-based software company to Intel in 2011, Khaled could have retired, but instead wanted to invest in the next generation of young entrepreneurs in Egypt. 60% of the population is below the age of 30, according to government statistics.
I was not ready to do another 7-year tough journey and so on, but let me give back to people and the youth all the experience I learned, give back. I set aside some of the money that was from the gain of the sale to do that. And initially it was actually not for profit.
From waste management to electronic waste to reusable cooking oil, Khaled's company is known for investing in startups that claim to be environmentally friendly.
VCs want more the tech part, quick turnarounds, you know, an app and all of these things. Whereas, you know, a more sustainable endeavor that takes 5-7 years to build and needs cash flow and all of that is typically not on the radar screen of many VCs. So we thought it's a blue ocean for us to become known as investors in that area. And true enough, that's what happened. So in waste management in particular, we've invested in 5 startups.
One of the first was Biodiesel Misr. Meet Mahmoud Al-Rakab. His aha moment came at a petrol station in the UK when he saw biodiesel fuel on offer. The same can't be said in Egypt. Now he's dedicated his career to changing that. And Mahmoud says the answer can be found in everyone's kitchen.
We are a biofuel producer out of used cooking oil and all the waste oils. Biodiesel is completely alternative to petroleum diesel that run the commercial engines and all the fleets.
While used cooking oil is readily available in Egypt, it is costly to convert into biodiesel. Biodiesel costs are currently 70 to 130% higher than petrol and diesel. In Egypt, diesel is subsidized by the government. So for now, his market is Europe, where EU mandates dictate the use of biofuels.
The European market is huge. It's $14.2 billion market size.
Mahmoud says Egypt's proximity to Europe makes his business logistically viable.
We are in the middle of the world, so it's a good opportunity.
He believes his company, which produces 90 metric tons of biodiesel per day, could help Egypt become a market leader in this space.
But I'm not hoping that my company only to be the largest or the first producer. We are the largest in MENA region. We know this by now. But I hope that Egypt, is the country that I belong to, will be the largest producer of biofuels in the world. It's not the company, it's the country.
Khalid Ismail agrees and believes turning a profit doesn't necessarily have to be bad for the planet.
We all know that, less CO2 or whatever is better for the world. But, there is a price for that. So you go to a factory and say, produce less CO2. They say, this is going to cost me $2 million a year. I'm not going to do it. But if you can turn that environmental need into a financial gain, then you don't need to convince them that you're doing this for the environment. You're doing it still as any enterprise for financial gain. But while you're doing that, by the way, you are reducing the carbon emission, you are doing good for the environment, you're doing good for your society, and so on.
Well, that's it for this edition of Marketplace Middle East. If you'd like to see some of the stories that we feature on this program, you can check out our website. From me, Eleni Jakos, here in Cairo, Egypt, I'll see you next time.